Ferrari, Lewis, 2025.
I don't have a witty quip for this, but... Oh, wait, maybe that is the quip.
And then right before I end recording this, Karun Chandhok then drops a bombshell that Bottas could be called back to Mercedes. What on earth is going on? Does that mean that Valtteri gets a second chance? That his loyalty at Mercedes is then rewarded? I'm sorry if I'm shouting right now, but I can barely keep up with this. I'm editing that video as we speak, and then that happens, and then the Gazzetta dello Sport talks about the idea of Lewis going to Ferrari in the middle of 2024. Or maybe he goes to the Scuderia before the season even starts. Does that mean Bottas then gets the call up back to Mercedes? I don't know what's going on. I really don't know. This ladder man can only handle so much. Okay, so, calmly this time. Lewis Hamilton has supposedly signed with Ferrari to join the team in 2025, breaking the contract that he had with Mercedes to run until the end of 2025. Why this is the case, we do not know. But according to the likes of Sky Sports and Chris Medland, and even the normies on the regular radio boxes, they are saying that this is going to happen. This is not a rumor. This is apparently happening. And multiple outlets are saying that this is going to be the case for the next season. That the only reason we haven't heard comments officially from Ferrari and Mercedes is that the Brackley staff have yet to have a formal announcement about the situation, and then only then will the teams probably comment on this. But also, this kind of explains a lot regarding the sticking point concerning Carlos Sainz's contract, because there had been rumblings about difficulties coming along with the process, as well as negative comments from Carlos himself regarding the development of the 676, that it wasn't really suitable to his driving style. But I did not expect him to be potentially dumped like this, and all I'm going to say is that the only happy bunny out of all of this right now is going to be George Russell. He is the only one who is going to be happy about any of this, because now his dream of leading Mercedes will come true. And everyone else is going to be really, really upset about this. And let me start off with the most obvious guy in the room, Toto. My goodness. So what does this say about Toto and the condition of the W15? It seems like no matter what happened, bringing back James Allison, changing the direction of the car entirely, listening to Lewis Hamilton's own feedback about where the car should go, he then decides to commit one of the biggest betrayals in recent Formula One history, almost bigger than Sebastian Vettel retiring surprisingly from Aston Martin, and Fernando Alonso comes in, and then the Oscar Piastri Alpine case, you then get Lewis just dumping Mercedes after a decade, and then going to the Scuderia. Yes, the reasons why that this makes a lot of sense is because there have been rumblings throughout many, many months and articles of speculation. Earlier last year, there were talks about there being a $40 million a year contract deal for him to go to Ferrari. But the reason why Lewis had that as a sticking point was the idea of going back to a team and starting afresh all over again in terms of getting to know the team. And not to mention for the fact there was an elephant in the room of Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc being the golden boy here. But Toto getting this surprise news, how is he going to handle this? Because Lewis was one of the biggest generators of success for Mercedes. And now, him just suddenly walking off in the middle of his contract, barely months after the contract extension was signed, that's just going to be a very, very big bombshell in the boardroom of Mercedes-Benz. And I would be worrying for Toto Wolff's future career in Formula One, but considering he's a major shareholder of the team, he will be absolutely fine, but nobody talked to him for a while because this is going to be devastating news for him. Then, of course, there is going to be Carlos Sainz. All the stuff that he's been trying to do, convincing Ferrari that he is worth keeping for another couple of years, that means he can see out what happens with the 2026 regulations in Ferrari, he's now not going to have any sort of contract extension at all. So now, people are thinking, well, he might go to Audi. He might go somewhere else. This is the thing. This is a very, very worrying time for Carlos Sainz because they're going to have to quickly scramble, and we might see him at Filet Mignon F1 team, alongside maybe Nico Hülkenberg. We don't know, but they have been teammates before at Renault for 2018 and the back end of 2017. But Carlos's plans, I bet his management team are going to be going into overdrive, and Carlos Sainz Sr. will definitely help out with him in that case, just to add a little bit of extra support and sweeten the deal. And then also, it kind of makes things a little bit more difficult for Checo, because I predicted that he might go to Audi or what becomes Audi. Now that's probably not going to happen. So Oh dear. Oh dearie, dearie, dear. And most importantly, Charles Leclerc. What's going to happen to this? So, okay, Fred Vasseur promises to build the car around him. They extend his contract for several seasons, him believing in the Ferrari project, and then in comes the 7-time world champion, Lewis Hamilton, one of the most successful F1 drivers in the history of the sport, to come and fulfill what he has said is a childhood dream of racing for Ferrari and doing the business with Ferrari. What has been going on here? Because this makes a little bit more sense as well, because Fred Vasseur has worked with Lewis Hamilton back in the days of GP2 and before that, so they both know the score. And Fred, he's a very shrewd businessman and team boss. He knows how to get through to drivers, even though he may look relatively plain, sedate, and even docile. He is a very, very calculated individual when it comes to running a team. And that's the reason why Ferrari brought him in, because of his calm demeanor. There is a reason why on the door of his own office, he is not known as the president or Mr. Vasseur. He is simply Fred. He is down to earth and he is approachable. And I think he's certainly been approaching Lewis Hamilton because he knows him. And I just feel really bad for Charles Leclerc right now because his promise has been sort of tainted by the prospect of Lewis Hamilton right there. And you know this is going to be an absolute bombshell for any team dynamics in that situation. Scuderia Ferrari, who are known for picking a singular driver over another. Lewis Hamilton, who is very uncomfortable dealing with drivers who are questioning his authority. He is very, very keen in being the de facto lead driver. If not, there are complications. And he needs the reassurance that that team is fully behind him. He does not need to have the aggravation of Charles Leclerc right there. And no matter how docile and amiable Charles is, and how realistic of the bigger picture he is still one of the guys who could go up against Max Verstappen if he's in the right car and situation, and in the right frame of mind. All this is going to do is completely devastate Charles Leclerc's outlook for 2025, because sure, 2024 looks great. He's the team leader for then. But when Lewis comes in, that's going to go out the window, isn't it? And of course, Fred might argue, hey, don't worry. Lewis will be here for a couple of years, then he'll retire, and then you can be the leader again. But he's had the leader plum for so many years after he disrupted another multiple world champion and became the golden boy of Ferrari. Is he the golden boy now? Really? Well, I feel like if you're a Leclerc fan, sorry, Matty, I think you're probably not going to have a good time of it come 2025. But I know. Ferrari, keeping Lewis Hamilton, doing the dream. When it comes to Fred Vasseur, you do not mess with him. He is clever. He will bamboozle you. And he has bamboozled Toto, even though they are good friends. Yeah. In fact, it got so bad at the beginning, Fred Vasseur got told off by the superiors at Ferrari for even taking the same jet as Toto Wolff. But what's going to happen with Mercedes now? What's going to happen? They're going to have to find a new driver pronto. And like I said in my video about Kimi Antonelli the other day, whenever there's a shock departure of a driver, Mercedes don't really know what to do. And they make rash decisions which could impact the future of any junior driver they have on their roster. But it's going to be quids in for George. He's going to be fine. He's going to be the team leader now. So he's fine. And then we might even see the likes of Alex Albon potentially getting the plum at Williams, because Toto is very aware of what's happening at Williams. So maybe George might put in a good word to bring Alex in as his teammate, because they do get along, and Mercedes, is a more developed unit and prospect for world championship success than Williams. But would James allow that? Would Alex want to ditch the team that he has built himself around as a leader, where he might not be the leader anymore? That's a question, but it's certainly an option. Lando Norris is no longer a thing because he's committed to McLaren, right at the wrong time in a way. But then you've got the likes of, well, who's going to maybe step into the lurch at the last minute? Well, Esteban Ocon would be available because his contract with Alpine ends at 2024, and he is still managed by Toto Wolff. And, of course, ideally, Mick Schumacher could be an option as well to just jump into the fray for at least one season before Kimi Antonelli might be ready for a shock call-up to the senior team. We do not know. This is very, very breaking news here, folks, and I was making another video as I found out about this news, and then I had to take my animals to the vet, so all of this was going down while I was waiting to have my dog's temperature checked, and then it was just like, the temperature of F1's social media sphere has gone nuts! Almost anyone's completely forgotten about all of the stuff that's happened with Andretti, but Oh my goodness. Okay, all right. There have been links to Lewis and Ferrari before, but the fact is, though, the normies on the radio are talking about it. Normally, the normies don't talk about this if it's not got some legs about it. That Lewis going to Ferrari would be a huge confidence booster for the board of Ferrari. They will do anything that Lewis says. And I think that Lewis might have a good position there because Ferrari, they seem to have what it takes in terms of the operational side of things. They have evolved things from their original F175 concept of 2022. Fred seems to know what he is doing. He seems to have been able to get a good establishment at the Scuderia, whereas Toto and Mercedes have had to bring in the old guard again and change their concept of car 3 times in 3 years. And that is a sign a team is in disarray. What does this mean for the future of Mercedes if their star driver, who went to them after becoming disillusioned at McLaren, oh my goodness. I think Toto Wolff needs to give Ron Dennis a call and figure out what's going to happen to him because, oh my goodness, I feel really bad for Toto right now. I know that, yeah, he's a grown man and he can handle this, and that means that the complications with George have gone away. But then it's just going to just throw in the confidence of Mercedes. All the Mercedes fans are going to just completely desert them. That they'll go to Ferrari. And then all the Charles Leclerc fans will be having their noses put out of joint because the future of their golden boy is now thrown into question because he might have to yield to the influence of Lewis Hamilton. He might do, he might not do, but it really depends on how compliant Lewis is when he goes over there. We don't know the details as of yet because there are still some talks going on, but all of the signs are pointing out to this being true and that these rumors do have legs, unlike all of the other talk that happened earlier on in 2023. But yeah, this is just my 2 penneth here. So in summary, Lewis goes to Ferrari, George becomes the team leader at Mercedes, and then they're just going to have to find somebody quickly to try and fill in the gap left by Lewis. Is it going to be Kimi Antonelli? Probably not. Is it going to be Esteban Ocon? Essie Bessie getting his call up to the Mercedes camp finally? Maybe. Mick Schumacher. Might he get the call back? So that means he can then have at least 1 season with the team that gave him his second chance in Formula 1 and showed that he can do the business in the simulator for them? Maybe. We do not know. But the point is, though, is that this is going to cause a seismic shift in the world and support of Formula 1. All of those Mercedes fans, they'll be gone next year. They'll go to Ferrari. Ferrari will become the absolute pinnacle of Formula 1 again, as they've been used to for several decades. Red Bull? Red who? Ferrari? Lewis Hamilton. The combination that people have been mooting about for pretty much the longest time, at least a decade or more. And, oh my goodness. So, yes, this was quite the bombshell, folks. But my other bombshell idea could have been, if Mick Schumacher doesn't get a chance at Mercedes, he may get a chance at Alpine. Go and watch this video next as to why I think that could happen, if not at Mercedes.